Have a good morning. I'm Sharmina Sentina, Master of Arts in Psychology student. And today I will be giving you the introduction to psychological assessment. First things first, let's define what psychological assessment is. Well, according to Gehrig and Zimbardo in 2002, psychological assessment is the use of standardized measure to evaluate abilities, behavior, and personal qualities of people. Well, let's focus on the term standardized measure. Standardized measure. Ibig sabihin may ginagamit tayo na standardized tool upang masukat yung at ma-evaluate yung abilities, behavior, and personal qualities ng mga tao. Kailangan din nating tandaan na sa psychological assessment ay may sinusunod tayong proseso. Kumbaga, ito ay isang step-by-step process. And then, kailangan din natin tandaan sa psychological assessment, it is a case-to-case basis. Kumbaga, walang iisang procedure na maaaring gamitin sa pangkalahatan. Okay, next one is role of the clinician. Okay, bago tayo tumungo sa role ng clinician, kailangan muna nating alamin kung sino nga ba yung pwede lang mag-conduct ng psychological assessment. Okay, sabi dito, not just anyone can perform a psychological evaluation. Kumbaga sabi dito, licensed clinical psychologist. Kumbaga, bakit nga ba kailangan lisensyado? Dahil sila lang yung merong expertly trained to administer assessment and test and interpret the result. Kumbaga kasi hindi lang tayo pwedeng kumuha ng basta lang na magkakandak ng assessment. Kasi ito, sabi ko nga kanina, ito ay isang procedure na kailangan may sundin na step-by-step process upang mag-come up tayo sa isang resulta na kailangan na makakatulong sa client natin. Okay. And then, may malaki rin kasi siyang ginagampanan na role. The main role of clinician is to answer specific questions and aid in making relevant decision. And then, lagi natin tatandaan yung sa pag tayo naging clinician na, the goal is not merely to describe the person, but rather to develop relevant answers to specific questions, aid in problem solving, and facilitate decision making. Okay, dito, pwede nating maihalin tulad ang assessment sa pagbuo ng malaking puzzle, na kung saan ang puzzle pieces ay nagmumula sa mga information na makukuha mula sa client or sa patient. And then, ang pagbuo ay magmumula sa'yo. Kumbaga, ikaw yung magde-decide kung paano mo siya bubuuin base kung saan, sa mga informasyon na nakuha mo mula sa kanya. Okay, so next naman, patterns of test usage in clinical assessment. The pattern of test usage varies somewhat across different studies and varies considerably from setting to setting. Kumbaga, wala dito sinusunod na iisang pattern. Ang kasi dito ay case-to-case basis, magbabase kung ano yung next step mo doon sa nauna mong nakuhang informasyon mula sa client. So, hindi lang tayo magpo-focus sa test dito. Hindi lang tayo magpo-focus sa, kasi yung title is Patterns of Test Usage in Clinical Assessment. Kumbaga, hindi lang tayo dito mag-focus sa test usage, kundi sa whole process, kasi walang sinusunod na isang pattern sa clinical assessment. So, okay, a little bit of a background muna. So, bali in 1940 and 1950, the earliest form of assessment was through clinical interview. Bali, ang interview dito, kapag sinabi dito in 1940 and 1950, ang ang ginagamit na interview dito is unstructured interview. Okay, unstructured interview na sila Freud, Jung, and Adler, yun yung ginagamit nila during that time. Kapag sinabing unstructured interview, dito yung walang sinusunod na pattern. Kumbaga, haphazardly yung pagtatanong. And then next naman, psychological testing was frequently the single most important activity of professional psychologists. Kumbaga, dito sila nagbabase talaga ng data. Yun. So, next naman, this was also the time na kung saan yung gradual decrease in total time spent in assessment is due in part to the widening role of psychologists. Lumalawak na yung area na sinasakupan ng psychologist dito, na na-involve na rin sila sa administration, consultation, organizational development, and many other areas of direct treatment. Next naman, 1960s and 1970s, structured clinical interview are often given preference over psychological tests. So dito naman, nag-evolve na nagkaroon na tayo dito ng structured clinical interview kasi nagkaroon ng malaking criticism doon sa paggamit ng unstructured interviews. Sabi nila, kailangan daw munang pag-usapan kung ano ba yung mga relevant tanong na maaaring itanong doon sa client para mas makatulong doon sa gagawin na assessment. So next naman, decline in testing has also been attributed to disillusionment with the testing process based on criticisms about the reliability and validity of many assessment device. So, bali dito, during that time, nagkakaroon ng malaking question regarding sa test use. Ngunit ang pinakamalaking criticism na natanggap doon regarding using of test is yung mahirap na scoring system, questionable norms, and poor predictive utility at kulang or minsan wala talagang non-existent yung validity sa paggamit ng testing. Naman, continuation. A psychologist doing assessment might include such techniques as interviewing, administering, interpreting traditional psychological tests like using MMPI and ways. So ito, naturalistic observations. Pag sinabing naturalistic observations, dito yung obserbahan mo yung client in a natural setting. And then neuropsychological assessment and behavioral assessment. So, okay, let's move on. Areas that were not given much emphasis during 1980s. So, dito nga yung, kumbaga hindi pa mahalaga sa kanila yung topic na tungkol dito. Unang-una sa lahat, yung personality disorders, stress and coping, yun, and hypnotic responsiveness, psychological health, ngayon nga, buti ngayon nabibigyan ng pansin yung mental health natin eh. So, kumbaga mas maswerte po yung time natin. Okay. And next naman yung adaptation to new cultures. And lastly, changes associated with increased modernization. Additional areas naman, family systems, relation between a person and his environment, cognitive processes, level of personal control or self-efficacy. Okay, sabi dito sa baba, all this require clinicians to be continually aware of new and more specific assessment devices and maintain flexibility in the approaches they take. So, kumbaga kailangan kasi maging flexible ka kapag magkakanda ka ng assessment kasi hindi lang iisang angulo yung kailangan mong tignan. Maraming factors na pwedeng makaapekto dun sa iisang tao. Kumbaga, domino effect na rin eh. So, next naman, evaluating psychological test. So, dito, bago gumamit or gamitin ang psychological test, kailangan muna natin alamin at ang pinaka-importante sa lahat, intindihin itong mga sumusunod na to. So, theoretical orientation. Dito naman, bago ka mag-start ng testing, kailangan mo muna sagutin yung mga tanong dito. Do you adequately understand the theoretical construct the test is supposed to be measuring? Do the test items correspond to the theoretical description of the construct? Dito, upang malaman natin anong angkop na test ang dapat natin ibigay sa isang kliyente, first we need to be familiar with the different tests and know what the test is supposed to measure. Para saan ba tong test na to? Kailangan nating alamin. Para malaman natin yun, kailangan natin basahin yung manual ng test at kailangan na maging familiar kung ano nga ba yung iba't ibang uri ng test na available. Tas ang pinaka-importante talaga sa lahat, kailangan natin maunawaan kung ano ba talaga yung nilalaman nito. Kailangan nating hima-himayin kung maaari yung isang test bago natin talaga ibigay or bago natin i-recommend sa ibang tao yung test na yun. Okay, next naman, practical considerations. If reading is required by the examinee, does his or her ability match the level required by the test? And next naman, how appropriate is the length of the test? So, practical consideration from the word itself. Kailangan alamin mo muna yung test na tinitake ba ng taong to is angkop sa kanya. Hindi lang base sa level ng kanyang pag-iisip o sa kailangan, for example, record ng reading, yung test na yun, mahabang pagbabasa. Kailangan be mindful with the educational background nung magte-test. So marami tayong dapat bigyan consideration bago tayo magbigay ng test. Next naman, standardization. Is the population to be tested similar to the population the test was standardized on? Was the test of the standardization sample adequate? Have specialized subgroup norms been established? How adequately do the instructions permit standardized administration? Dito, for example, ang ibibigay mo na test ay ang bibigyan mo ng test is manggagaling sa diverse population. For example, ethnic group, minority group. Was the test standardized enough for the test taker? Okay, kailangan ito kasi the test needs to be useful to the test taker. To para sa standardized. Okay? Next naman, reliability. So, okay, a psychological test needs to be reliable. Bakit kailangan maging reliability? Ba't kailangan ng reliability? Because reliability addresses issues of consistency. Ano-ano nga ba yung tinatawag na reliability of the test? Well, reliability refers to the degree of stability, consistency, predictability, and pinaka-importante sa lahat, accuracy. It addresses the extent to which scores obtained by a person are the same if the person is re-examined by the same test on different occasion. So dito natin makikita ba't kailangan reliable. Sabi nga kanina doon sa definition, kailangan siya kasi ina-address niya yung binibigyan niya tayo ng accuracy. Pwede tayo mag-rely dito sa test na to. Kumbaga ganon. So next is, paano nga natin makakamit yung may tatlo tayong pwedeng gamitin dito na approach, kumbaga. Una sa lahat, test-retest. Okay, test-retest relates to the measure of reliability that has been obtained by conducting the same test more than one time over period of time with the participation of the same very group. Okay. Okay, from the given definition, so test-retest, andun din sa title niya. Magbibigay ka ng same test sa isang group and then over some time, bibigay mo ulit yung test doon sa very same group upang makita mo kung yung may pagbabago ba doon sa sagot nila. So doon makikita yung kung same answer pa rin ba or over some period of time nagbago ba. So doon natin pwedeng gamitin natin tong approach na to na tinatawag na test-retest. Next naman, alternate forms. Alternate forms is a measure of reliability between two different forms of the same test. Kumbaga dito, same test na yung gagamitin mo pero ngunit sa dalawang anyo. Bakit merong alternate forms? Nagkaroon ng alternate forms kasi para masagot yung mga naging problema dun sa test-retest. For example, ang unang naging issue dun sa paggamit ng test-retest is yung tinatawag na carry-over effect na kung saan nadadala yung unang carry over yung effect dun sa pangalawang pagsagot. Diba sabi dun kanina, 2 beses ka magsasagot ng test. So may nadadalang naki-carry over yung problem dun sa pagsagot niya sa dalawa. So medyo nagkakaroon tayo ng issue dun sa reliability. Okay, ang main issue naman dito sa alternate forms is yung determining whether the two forms are actually equivalent. Kasi ang sinusukat natin again dito sa pinag-uusapan natin is yung reliability. Kasi sabi dito, 2 different forms of the same test. Paano tayo makakasigurado na yung naiba mong anyo is parehas pa rin dun sa anyong nauna mo. So medyo magulo siya. Pero pwede rin siyang gamitin sa pagtetest ng reliability test. Next naman, split half reliability. So, split half reliability is a measure of internal consistency. So, bali dito sa split half naman, split half reliability is to know how well the test components contribute to the construct that's being measured. So, kung ano ba nakaka-apekto yung nilalaman ng test na to dun sa pinakabuuan ng test. So, it is most commonly used for multiple choices. Test, you can theoretically use it for any type of test, even test with essay questions. So, next naman, interscore reliability. Interscore reliability is the reliability and internal consistency among 2 or more individuals. So, dito sa interscore reliability, ang pinaka-kinukuha dito is yung series of responses from a single client and to have these responses scored by 2 different individuals. Okay, so next naman, dito naman nagbigay ako dito ng tips kung paano nga ba mas magiging reliable yung isang test. Bali, sabi dito, longer tests usually have higher reliabilities than shorter one. For example, mas mahaba kasing test tinitingnan dun yung consistency mo doon sa sagot mo. Kung same pa rin ba yung sagot mo doon sa naunang test. Ay, doon sa unang item. Minsan may naka-encounter na rin ako ng test na mahaba siya, and then yung kunyari tanong sa number 1 is magiging tanong din sa item number 52, ganun. So tinitignan talaga doon yung consistency mo. Next naman, the best form of reliability is dependent on both the nature of the variable being measured and the purpose for which test is used. Okay, now let's go naman to sa next topic. Okay, so natakal na natin yung reliability. Ngayon topic naman natin yung validity. So kapag sinabing validity assesses what the test is to be accurate about. So, gaano nga ba ka-valid ito sa isang test? Meron din tayo ditong tatlong approach. Una sa lahat, content validity. Content validity, this refers to the representativeness of relevance of the assessment instrument to the construct being measured. So, content validity, you need to answer this question. Is the test fully represent of what it aims to be measured? So, sabi dito, okay, so bali dito, content validity. Gaano ka-valid yung content, yung nilalaman nung isang test? Or na-justify ba nito kung ano ba yung kinakailangan nito ma-measure? So, ganun. Sabi dito, content validity refers to the degree to which an assessment instrument is relevant to and representative of the targeted construct it is designed to measure. So, kumbaga, nagagawa ba nito kung ano ba yung kailangan niyang magawa? Okay, nabavalidate ba nito yung kailangan niyang ma-validate? Next naman, criterion validity. Criterion validity is the outside measure should have a theoretical relation to the variable that the test is supposed to measure. So dito sabi, do the test result corresponds to a different test of the same thing? Okay, sabi dito, the ultimate aim of criterion validity is to demonstrate that the test scores are predictive of real life outcome. So kumbaga, okay, sabi dito, the criterion validity, yung underlined words, the outside measure have a theoretical relation, kumbaga may pagkakaugnay, to the variable that the test is supposed to measure. Kumbaga dito, mini-measure niya of how well one variable or set of variable predicts an outcome based on information from another variable and will be achieved if a set of measures from a personality test relate to a behavioral criterion on which psychologists agree. Kumbaga meron dapat pagkakahalintulad sa kanila. Okay, bali ang criterion validity nahahati siya sa dalawa, concurrent validity and predictive validity. So kapag sinabi natin concurrent validity, so from the word itself concurrent, approximately an approach that measures the same approximately the same time as the test. Kumbaga dito yung makikita mo yung behavior na ginagawa nung respondent mo or yung client mo habang siya ay nagte-take ng test. And then next naman is yung predictive validity. Predictive validity from the word itself, predictive ability. It is taken some time after the test scores were derived. So next naman, construct validity. Construct validity, the degree to which a test measures what it claims or purpose to be measuring. So dito yung construct validity from the word, kung ano ba yung, kung para saan ba yung test is na-validate niya ba kung para saan ba yung test. Okay, so it is a rational empirical process for identifying the psychological attributes of a measure or a scale. The test is actually measuring the construct it claims it's measuring. Okay, medyo naintindihan ba? So kumbaga dito, ang pinakatanong na lagi na lang natin tatandaan is, does the test measure the concept that it's intended to measure? So, yon para mas malinaw. Okay, next naman, validity in clinical practice. Kumbaga, so na-validate na natin yung mga test, nalaman natin kung paano maging reliable ang isang test. Ngayon naman, dadako tayo sa validity in clinical setting. Kasi hindi lamang tayo sa test magbe-base kailangan din dun din sa clinical practice natin maging ma-validate yun kung ano man yung naging hypothesis na nag-come up tayo. Kasi bakit nga ba kailangan? Kasi meron din mga iba't ibang pwedeng makaapekto. Mga outside, for example, mga kumbaga, kasi yung test is, ano na yan nandyan na yan So, dito naman sa natural setting, marami pwedeng maka-apekto doon sa magiging resulta ng magiging assessment natin. So, kailangan din dito sa clinical practice natin, ma-validate yun. So, meron ditong dalawang subtopic in validity in clinical practice. So, una is yung incremental validity. So, incremental validity refers to the ability of tests to produce information above what it is already known. So, dito, refers to the ability of tests to produce information above what is already known. So, kumbaga, alam mo na to pero kailangan mag-come up ka pa ng another hypothesis. Kumbaga doon sa isang hypothesis na alam na ng lahat. Incremental validity is a predictor's ability to explain an outcome beyond all other predictors. Kumbaga dito is yung ma-solidify mo yung hypothesis na meron ka. Kumbaga for example, kumbaga sa pag nagpapatest, nagpupunta tayo sa isang doktor. Ang hula ng doktor sa iyo, meron kang ganito. Ang unang parang impression sa iyo is meron kang sakit sa ganito. So para ma-solidify 'yon, kailangan mo mag-undergo ng series of medical tests. Blood test yung example, mga ganun. Doon papasok incremental validity to solidify kung ano yung may meron kang yung unang na-predict sa'yo. Okay. Conceptual validity. Next naman sa conceptual validity, it is a means of evaluating and integrating test data so that the clinician's conclusion make accurate statement about the examinee. Kumbaga dito, ang conceptual validity naman, it is based on logic and internal consistency of the data. Kumbaga yung konsepto mo, kailangan, yung konsepto is maging integrate siya dun sa test data. So, para mag-come up ng accurate statement about the examinee. Next naman is clinical judgment. So, dito merong 4 na topic regarding clinical judgment. Clinical judgment is a special instance of perception in which the clinician attempts to use whatever sources are available to create accurate descriptions of the client. So dito na yung step by step paano mo magkakaroon ka ng different assessment. Sabi dito, para magkaroon ka ng accurate description of the client. So, next, okay, una-una is yung data gathering and synthesis. Data gathering and synthesis is the most research related to the strengths and weaknesses of data gathering and synthesis has focused on the assessment interview. Dito yung mag-create ka ng rapport dun sa client mo. Kasi dito yung mag-gather ka ng iba't ibang data regarding sa kanya. So next naman, the clinician typically develops hypotheses based on the client's responses and combines his or her observations with his or her theoretical understanding of the issue. Okay, this can be further reinforced if clinician makes early judgment and then work to confirm this judgment to seek supporting information. Kumbaga dito is nag-start ka ng mag-gather ng iba't ibang, parang for example, for example, dito yung magbubuo ka na talaga. Dito na sinisimulan yung pagbubuo mo ng malaking picture regarding dun sa client mo or assessment dun sa client mo. Okay, next naman, accuracy of clinical judgment. So dito naman, the need to make final judgments regarding the client. Clinical versus actuarial prediction. Ito yung may ginagamit dito na approach. Okay, may ginagamit na approach dito. Okay, so una is yung clinical approach and then pangalawa is yung actuarial prediction. So ginagamit to make ang clinical judgment more accurate. So ano nga bang pinakaiba ng clinical and actuarial prediction? Pero una muna, define natin silang dalawa. A clinical actuarial prediction is a clinical approach to integrate data and arriving at conclusions and allow a clinician to explore, probe, and deepen his or her understanding in many So, una muna natin define is yung actuarial prediction. When we say actuarial prediction, it is purely based on statistical information, and it is not a subjective judgment. It is characterized by mechanical processing of information, leading to probabilities representing empirical determined relative frequencies. Ito yung mga kunyari, for example, mga psychometric test na ginagamit para mas ma-validate yung kung ano man yung hypothesis na meron yung isang clinician. And then clinical naman, it is I think yung mga observed behavior within the clinical setting, yung mga okay, when we say clinical naman, clinical prediction, it is mas kilala siya sa tawag na clinical judgment. For example, yung to process the data in the head of the clinician. So, kumbaga, ito yung over the years of being a clinician, so, kumbaga, parang face value, kumbaga dito. Ang pinagkaiba nito sa actuarial prediction, a clinical prediction is more of a subjective, unlike sa actuarial na gumagamit ng iba't ibang ng mga procedure to come up with that. And then next naman, to make the clinical judgment more accurate, kinakailangan din ng psychological report. Psychological report ties together all sources of information. Yung mga, ito na yung pinaka parang report mo dun sa client mo. So, dito mo na ilalagay lahat. So, kumbaga, ito na yung pinaka final paper mo regarding your client. Okay, so phases in clinical assessment naman. Okay, one thing to remember throughout these phases, the clinician should integrate data and serve as an expert on human behavior rather than merely an interpreter of test scores. So, yun. So, first naman, okay, evaluating referral question. So, dito, clinician may need to uncover hidden agendas, unspoken expectations, and complex interpersonal relationships, as well as explain the specific limitation of psychological tests. Dito yung kailangan masagot mo lahat ng maaring posible niyang itanong sa'yo, at yung mga hindi niya kayang may tanong sa'yo, kailangan mabigyan mo ring kaliwanagan para sa kanya, para mas maintindihan niya. Mas maintindihan niya kung bakit ba kailangan ito. Next naman. Acquiring knowledge relating to the content of the problem. Okay, sabi dito, competence in merely administering and scoring tests is insufficient to conduct effective assessment. Of course, hindi lang tayo talaga kailangan magbase sa test, sa psychological test. Sabi ko nga kanina, kailangan tignan natin yung iba't ibang anggulo na maaaring makaapekto doon sa problema, at kailangan din natin malaman yung mga pwedeng dumating na problema para mapaghandaan natin. Next naman, data collection. So, ito yung pinaka-importante sa lahat para sa akin. This may come to a wide variety of sources, the most frequent of which are test scores, personal history, behavioral observations, and interview data. Kumbaga dito ka kasi mag-i-start sa tinatawag na data collection. Ang pinaka-importante rin dito is yung case history. Kung meron man. Case history is of equal importance because it provides a context for understanding the client's current problems, and through these understandings renders the test scores meaningful. In many cases, a client's history is of even more significance in making predictions and in assessing of seriousness of his or her condition than his or her test scores. Kumbaga dito kasi sa case history, dito natin, kung meron man, dito natin makikita yung mamomonitor natin yung naging progress niya over the years. Kasi meron na siyang available data. So, next naman, interpreting the data. Okay, tama ba? Ayun, interpreting the data. The end product of assessment should be a description of the client's present level of functioning, considering relating to the etiology, prognosis, and treatment recommendation. So dito lagi natin tandaan, interpreting the data. Ito yung at present na level of functioning ng kliyente. These considerations indicate that the description of a client should not mere labeling, lagi natin iwasan yun, yung tinatawag na labeling, or classification, but should rather provide a deeper and more accurate understanding of the person. This understanding should allow the examiner to perceive new facets of the person in terms of both his or her internal experience and his or her relationship with others. So dito natin kumbaga, ito na yung pinaka-last piece ng puzzle yung pag-interpret mo ng data So dito dapat ilagay lahat kung ano ba yung mga kailangan i-note. Okay, so next is, okay, tapos. So well, I guess that's it. Have a good day. And if you have any questions or comment, feel free. And thank you for listening.